Hi there, I'm your host Clive Sirkin, and welcome to the Unstuck podcast, where we're on a journey to help you get control of your work environment, get yourself unstuck, and perform to your full potential. Okay, good morning. Welcome. Actually, I don't know if it's actually morning. Good afternoon. Welcome to this week's episode of Unstuck. I'm going to do something different this week, and I'll explain what it is. So, given what I do, I have the pleasure of running into really cool, really interesting companies that are operating in a way below the radar. And I'm scratching my head going, how is it that everyone doesn't know about these things, these companies? And conversely, I talk to a ton of operators in the business, and they asking me for the very solutions that these companies need. And there's sort of a mismatch in the sense that the companies that are out there that people should be seeing are not being seen by the people who should see them, if that makes any sense. So I've decided once every 3 or 4 weeks, we're going to feature a company that I think everyone ought to know about. And this week, we're going to feature Spaceback. And I have the CEO of Spaceback, Casey. Welcome, my friend Casey. It's been a couple of years since we met, if I remember correctly. I've lost track of time.
Yeah, it's been a few years, I think, just before the pandemic. But thanks for having me here, and thanks for being a friend through over the past couple of years.
Absolute pleasure. Yeah, so let's say 3 years ago, I meet Casey, and he talks about the premise of Spaceback, which we'll get into a while. And I'm just sitting there going like, this is an absolute no-brainer. But before we talk about Spaceback, let's talk about Casey. So you come out of UC Berkeley, and you go on your first gig, as far as I remember you telling me, you went to Weather Underground, which I love the name. I think they were acquired by the Weather Channel. And then you go to Google twice, and iSocket, Rubicon, YieldMo. So you've bounced around in the world, but you've had a really interesting collection of experiences. And so, I don't know, what, 10, 12, give or take 10, 12 years. And then you found Spaceback, and it's been 5 years or change at Spaceback. Talk to me about the journey. Like, how the hell did that happen? Was there any master plan, or was it just sort of happen along the way? And how did you benefit from the journey? Because I think that a lot of people think about their careers and, what decisions should they make and what experiences are they looking for, and how did this journey happen? Was it a master plan, or did you sort of stumble your way through this?
Definitely stumbled my way through it, and I'm still stumbling my way through it, but having fun along the way. But it really did start back at Weather Underground. This journey where so I graduated from UC Berkeley in 2008. I went to the very last career fair of the people who didn't have jobs yet, and met Weather Underground, and they were like taking down the booth, and so I was like last resume to sneak in the stack, and didn't even really know what I was getting into, but luckily I was hired, and my first job was to manage all of the ad networks and all of the unsold inventory that they had. As a media publisher, I had to figure out how to be daisy chain and use Google AdSense and all these different systems to monetize unsold inventory. And right around 2008 was when the first programmatic ad transactions were happening. So I feel like I just started my career in a lucky place where, as soon as I learned how to do my job, a new technology came along, a month later, that totally automated a lot of aspects of my job, or would go on to automate a lot of aspects of my job. And for me, that journey through Google and AdMeld and Google and Magnite or Rubicon project was all around building programmatic ad systems that were really making it so we didn't have to manage all these kind of daisy chains and like different networks, doing passbacks and stuff. And so from a publisher perspective, kind of where I started at Weather Underground, my journey through my career has really been kind of getting a little closer to the buy side and seeing automation from the sell side through to the exchanges, in the middle, the DSPs, and now Spaceback, really working more with brands and agencies on creative automation, but really all part of this like programmatic ecosystem. So all of my jobs have really been in this programmatic sector, and so that journey has been pretty consistent, like from sell side to buy side throughout my career. But really, it all started with Weather Underground, and I've really been following my passion and my interest the whole time. Like I've never, or I haven't really thought as much about my career path as much as following what gets me really excited about my job, and just making sure I'm always really loving what I do.
So, and what defines loving what you do? Is it, like for me, loving what I do is first and foremost the people I work with. Like without that, you don't have anything. But the second part of it is sort of always being ahead of my skis and sort of on the edge, and coming out of meetings going like I don't know what the hell I'm talking about, which sort of makes it more invigorating and it makes it more exciting to learn. How do you think about it?
Yeah, I mean, those are some of my favorite kind of meetings where, we don't know what the hell we're talking about, and the outcome of the meeting is we got to figure it out, and you work with smart people to crack that problem, and that's what I mean by loving what I do, really. So it has a lot to do with people and the problems that we're solving together, and I mean that's probably my proudest thing at Spaceback, going from since the pandemic started, going from 5 people to we just had someone accept an offer this morning bring us to 20 people, where a lot of us have never met in person, and feeling like we still have that kind of camaraderie of enjoying what we're doing and solving problems together. It's definitely a big part of what keeps me going.
So okay, so let's talk about it. So you've come through this journey up programmatic. Somewhere along the way, you have this revelation that social and programmatic are operating in parallel universes to a degree, and you launched Spaceback, which, if I remember correctly, you claim to be the global leader and creator of the social display ad format. And I mean, when we talked, you talked about getting social beyond social. So, what the hell is a social display ad format, and why the hell should I care?
Yeah, well, social display ad formats are basically recreations of social media posts inside traditional ad units, outside of the walled gardens. So, checking the weather, for example, if you see 300 by 250s, these like boxes and banner ads all over the internet. Social display is when, instead of running kind of a more traditional ad in those placements, where a brand will recreate a social post in those placements. So that's what our platform does. But to kind of bring you back to your question, and I think why you should care is this is something that's happening like outside of Spaceback. Like, brands have become very social first in how they're creating content, working with influence. Like, a new social experience comes around, like TikTok or Instagram Reels, and brands are quick to have people thinking about what should we be, how should we be generating content, unique content for these channels. Where a lot of times these same brands are running the same display ads for months at a time, where they have a 3-month planning process and approval process. The ad creative's launched, and meanwhile, in that same time period, the social team is generating sometimes hundreds of social pieces of social content that they're posting. And we're just finding that users are much more familiar with the look and feel of social, and more like engaging with these pieces of social content a lot more than these traditional ads that are a 0.1% click-through rate. 99.9% of people ignoring it can be considered a success in programmatic, which can seems kind of crazy to me. Where in social we have all these metrics like likes and comments and follower counts, these like social validations that we think can be part of the brand's marketing presence even outside of the walled gardens. So it really comes out of a little bit of jealousy, and being, or FOMO, in my career, just seeing the walled gardens go from 0% market share to well over 50% of digital dollars. You think like, how is this happening so quickly? And I do think creative is a big part of the puzzle, or part of the advantage that they've had. That I see what social display is doing is in a lot of ways leveling the playing field, or bringing this advantage that social platforms have to all types of screens, even television and billboards. And we're going to start seeing social media in a lot of places that we didn't 10 years ago.
And I go back. So 2007, I started Kimberly Clark. And we were early adopters and pretty fast movers in terms of programmatic, and we had our own trade desk, etc. But generally speaking, the team that worked on social were not the team working on programmatic. And so part of that was, when you and I met 3 years ago and you started talking about it, my first sort of suss was part of the problem is they're different groups and they don't think that there's a cross pollination between the two. Um, the other part is, as I understand it, when you look at the numbers, social display performs better than bespoke content that's made things. So if
Absolutely.
that's true, and I'd love you to talk about it, then there's sort of like a double whammy in the sense that not only am I getting something that performs better, but I'm not spending the money to create something bespoke. So it seems like a no-brainer, right? Am I reading it right? Is that still the data? Is that still the business case?
That's absolutely right, and really that's just from the buyer's perspective, right? That there's it's more efficient. It's there's workflow efficiency is a lot cheaper to generate social display ads than the traditional process, and they perform a lot better. And again, that's only looking at the buyer perspective. One thing that's really important to me and Spaceback, and having been starting as a publisher at my career, is supporting the whole value exchange. So I think of it, the double whammy that you talk about is for the buyer, but considering all aspects of the value exchange, also considering the publisher and the user, this is also a better user experience. We see like higher time on screen, more familiar engagement. So we think users ignore these less and get more value out of social display ads. And in turn, when they perform better, the publishers are getting paid more. And it creates more sustainable programmatic spend. So we see it as definitely like double whammy for the buyer, but also something that elevates the whole value exchange. And that was really important to Spaceback from the beginning. And we didn't want to build something that helps the buyer and a seller at the expense of the user, or the user and the buyer at expense of the publisher. And most ad tech companies really come in thinking about who their customer is and serving that customer. And we are very much, we serve our customer well, but part of us from the beginning was really considering like, how do we support the whole value exchange? And I really believe that's important for building a sustainable business that you're not going to go away. You can build longer term relationships with your partners, and they continue to support your product process as well, when you can show how sustainable it is for the whole ecosystem.
So talk to me, or talk to us about how does it work? Like, just walk me through the process. And it's like it's a SaaS play, right? Like, how does it work from day one?
Yeah, it is. So we provide a platform that it enables anyone who has access to our platform can input a social media post, and this can be a post from Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, LinkedIn, Pinterest. We work with all the major integrate with all the major social platforms. And then when they input that post, we show some options for how they want it to be displayed. So like what elements of the post to be displayed, if they want to show a hashtag or not, what the call to action should be, some simple settings. But when the ad is saved, then our platform provides a production ready ad tag. So that's an ad tag that can deliver on any DSP and any SSP. It provides we're actually built on top of Google Campaign Manager or Google's ad server. So really what our SaaS platform does is it turns a social post into an ad tag, and then that ad tag is production ready for activation. So really we're automating a lot of the trafficking process through this as well. And we do offer managed service support for partners too, if they need help getting up to speed on our platform. But really, the process is, I've showed it to you before. It takes less than 2 minutes to turn a social post into a digital creative and activate it.
And as you think across your client base, which over the 3 years since we've been talking, it's growing in terms of number, but in terms of breadth, in terms of categories and stuff. What's your point of entry? Do you come in direct to client? Do you go in through the agencies? You were talking about the ecosystem. If I'm sitting here, how do I get engaged with you? And should I go through my agency? Do I call direct? Like, how does it work? What's the optimal? Is there an optimal?
Yeah, no, great question. And I think one thing you mentioned earlier is kind of how traditionally social teams and paid media teams can be in different silos. That means that a lot of what we're doing is that can be one of our biggest challenges in market, is that these teams traditionally, sit pretty far apart. And sometimes we talk to the paid media team, the team buying programmatic ads, who often is, the one using our platform. And, it looks social. Our platform does leverage social content. So they say, talk to our social team. We talk to the social team, and they haven't, don't really know what a DSP is. So some of this creates where a lot of our go-to-market is about educating, these teams. And one thing we saw last year with our partners at Havas, they did a reorg where instead of their, having the team that used Facebook Ad Manager and the team that used their DSP sit separately, they became one biddable team. So the trend, I think, is that these teams are coming together. But as such, and getting back to your question, our platform is really designed so that anyone building digital ad creative can use it. We have a lot of direct brand partners. So brands where the social team or the digital creative team are building the creative and then providing it to their programmatic activation team, either if it's in-house or at their agency. Then we have a lot of agency partners who are doing this on behalf of their brands, where they're just finding what social post they want to use, converting it in our platform and activating it. So agencies and brands can use it themselves, and then also we have a lot of DSP partners, partners like Amobi and Basis and Simplify and MediaMath, where we have a billing relationship with those partners. So buyers who are using those DSPs can use our platform instantly and activate creative. So anyone using one of those DSPs can just get in touch with their DSP partner. And then we have a team that can help onboard any brands or agencies and provide managed service for building creatives, building previews, et cetera. So we're really flexible in terms of who we can work with. And we even have publisher partners. So really anyone who's building creative for themselves or on behalf of a partner can get up and running on our platform, and we can automate a lot of that workflow.
One of the things in the premise of Unstuck is sort of talking about why companies and individuals and teams, in the face of something obvious, and I would say being close enough to you and being on the journey with you for 3 years periodically when we talk, the numbers are the numbers. And so the business case is pretty clear. And it's fascinating to me why, in the face of something obvious, where the numbers are clear, I mean, this is not gray, why teams and individuals don't take advantage of something that's hiding in plain sight. Like, what is, in your experience, because if you think back over your career, you've been selling stuff that's, close to the edge and innovative and new. And why do you think individuals, teams, companies don't beat their way to your door or doors like your door? Because there's a lot of really innovative players out there, and they're not getting the kind of volume of traction that the business case would say it's a no-brainer, you should be getting it. What's your perspective? I have a couple of thoughts, but I'd love to hear your perspective.
Yeah, I mean, my honest perspective is that they are starting to, and I think they're trying to. I mean, since we last spoke, we've probably activated a handful of the largest brands in the world who are coming around. I think the challenge is, and when I say they're trying to, I think organizational decisions versus individual decisions are kind of different, and we do have a lot of champions who love what we do and see that this is part of the future. And I think just getting an organization who hasn't done this before, it's no one's job to use social media in display environments. A lot of, org structures are, it's someone's job to execute, programmatic, spend. It's someone's job to manage the social content and stuff. And it really does, I think, take someone who's, decides to be a champion and do something innovative that's kind of outside the exact square of their manner, seeing that they can collaborate with other teams to do things in their square that, even better. So I think it's more just, happening slowly, and it's happening. And some organizations are better, structured so that it's easier to, test and adopt new things like this faster. But I'd say, I think the world is coming around. We've executed our first social display ads on CTV. So people seeing social display on television screens. already, and some of the largest brands in the world, like, testing our new products with us, where 3 years ago, I couldn't get, it was hard to get a test partner for some of these new products. And, now it feels like we do have very large brands who are kind of ready to test new stuff. And it's kind of slow. And I think there's organizational challenges, but yeah, it's happening. And I think faster than I thought it would over the past, couple of months, where I think when we were first getting off the ground, we had to really perfect our story too. And I think we had to learn, how do we communicate it so that people understand the internal opportunity. And even though we got it, I don't think we were explaining it as well as we thought we were. And it takes time for us, and takes time for the industry to kind of come around to this type of thing.
But there's, you covered one of the areas which is chronic, and sadly I don't see it going away, which is people tend to. I used to give this presentation where I had a picture of a lamppost, and I told the story of the guy the cop was walking through the park, and he saw someone on his knees under a lamppost, and the cop asked him, what are you doing? And he goes, I'm looking for my keys. And the cop was like, where did you drop them? I'll help you. And he pointed in the other direction. He goes, well, why are you looking here? And he goes, because that's where the light is. And I tell that story organizationally because over my years, I've always seen teams who just look where their light is, and they're not finding the key. And so, I've never conquered it. And much to my frustration is the ability to get organizations to look where the keys are, not where the light is, and to work together. Part of and connected to that is, when I started, I used to go crazy when I heard the word digital marketing, because really what it meant was, it was legitimizing analog marketing as opposed to marketing in a digital world. But the other thing is that led to like sort of random acts of digital. And we now are in an era of content. And the way I talk about content to commerce, like how do you take content and turn it into commerce? If your content's not driving to commerce, then you're wasting your time. If you're creating a commercial outcome that's a great experience, you will, as a consequential outcome, create equity, but that's a consequential outcome. And I think I'm starting to see more and more companies thinking about a marketing stack and a platforms that enable them to see digital content across the entire ecosystem. In its early days. Are you seeing any of that? I mean, I had a great conversation this morning. Screen Dragon is collaborating with my good friend Oscar at First Mover, and with a program to create a digital content ecosystem and stack that is part of the broader marketing stack, because it doesn't exist. What's your sense? What are you seeing out there in terms of the more innovative companies that are embracing more innovative change?
Yeah, well, I think it really comes down to measurement and the metrics that they care about. And what we find with some of our more innovative partners is, because we're compatible with any measurement system that our partners are using. So they can run regular creative and provide a pixel that measures Spaceback creative, alongside and exactly the same as other creative that they're running, and measure kind of multi-touch attribution, or like across a user journey. What are all the different pieces of content people are seeing, and ultimately what are the pieces of content that drive towards a purchase, even if it's not like, what's the last click that someone, makes before buying something, but what are all the things that someone saw that influence towards that. And what we're finding with a lot of our more sophisticated partners is, we'll have, our metrics that will, talk to them about click-through rate and in-banner engagement and time on screen, and these things that we can see in the unit. But when we go back to them, sometimes they're telling us, yeah, that's all cool, but we're waiting for, this report that is what we really care about. And what's fascinating to us is it feels like a lot of times our creative come back and are performing much better than we even expected. Where we find that, users who engage with social media are much more likely to click on a retargeting ad and make a purchase. And those kind of things are fascinating. I think we're really just scratching the surface of like cross-channel multi-touch attribution, and being able to figure out like what types of content and what types of content experiences. So like if someone sees the same piece of content on social versus off of social, does that drive towards a conversion in the same way? And I think we're at the really early stages of, I think, fully understanding that. But I think our most sophisticated partners seem really invested in trusting that data. And I think, that almost becomes their new light that can move with them a little bit more. But what I've been impressed by is them, some of these partners really not caring about traditional metrics, really being able to throw click-through rate out the window and look towards things that to us are, obviously, the future of understanding more cross-channel media allocation is really understanding how do you target that journey across a lot of different environments.
And the ultimate question, because I see we're getting short on time, but you think about the journey of Spaceback, which is what, nearly 6 years, 5 and some months, right? And you think back, you talked about early on getting, obviously you got to get your product proposition right and the platform built out and your sales pitch and all that stuff. But, and I know of late, the past year, your growth has been, not surprisingly incredible. What advice do you have? What have you learned that you could tell people about it or starting their journey as a startup that you wish you knew back then, wish you wouldn't have done because it killed you or burned a year or burned a month or burned talent or burned dollars? What would you tell people out there so they don't make the same mistakes? I'm assuming there were one or two mistakes that even someone as perfect as you.
Yeah, but I'm not going to admit them on your podcast. I'm just kidding. We like I said, we're still stumbling through it, but I think the most important thing is doing things with partners. We've had a lot of things that we've been really confident about that we were wrong about, but I think we found out that we were wrong about them because we tried to do them with partners, and we learned through trying to convince close partners that we trusted that this was something we really wanted to do, and kind of it really allowed us to, I think, point our product resources at things that we knew we could bring to market. And we knew, like, when this was built, we'd have a partner wanting to test and invested in. So we didn't really build our whole platform all at once. It was really guided by partners that we've been pretty transparent about where we are in the process, what expectations are. And I think we've all been, we had some luck early on where, our first test performed like over 5x better than the standard banners the partner was running. And for that to be our very first test got us so much trust that they were really invested in our product process and helping us, evangelizing for, the Deckers brands, has been a great partner since day one. And it was UGG campaign was one of our first tests. So having partners like that you can trust and innovate with, has been I think a big part of what has worked for our team.
That's incredible. As I said in the beginning, the purpose of this episode is to expose Spaceback to the people who are listening, because I believe they should be engaged with you. And for the record, I have no relationship other than I met Casey and I loved what he was doing. So I'm not on the payroll. I'm not an investor. And I will feature companies that I do have relationships with. But in this case, we have no relationship other than I'm a big fan. How do people get a hold? Yeah, and we're both wearing our Spaceback shirt, which is totally coincidental. How do people get a hold of Spaceback and Casey?
Yeah, my cell phone number is 415-205-5211. For anyone who wants to get a hold of me, send me a text, give me a call. And then our website is spaceback.com, SPACEBACK.com. And you can get in touch with us there, or, I'm Casey at spaceback.com. And yeah, I can, depending on context, can connect you with the right folks on our team, or, if it's just kind of jamming on the space, I love doing that too. That's how Clive and I got connected.
That's the way it works. So Casey, thanks for making time. As I said, I'm a huge fan of what you guys are doing. I think more people should be exposed to it. And I look forward to watching you guys continue to grow. It's been cool talking to you, my friend. And I suspect we'll be having another conversation soon. So thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks so much, Clive. Talk soon.
This This podcast was brought to you by Screen Dragon. We break down barriers, make work flow, and unlock talent. Visit ScreenDragon.com to see our software in action.